The hidden torment of Roman slaves, a world no one dared to speak of, buried beneath marble palaces and the pomp of emperors. You might think you know Rome, the grandeur, the glory, but behind every marble column, behind every feast, there were lives crushed, bodies broken, and souls stripped bare. A world where survival was a gamble, and every day could be your last. Imagine walking barefoot on cold stone floors, your hands raw from endless labor, while your master watches with a silence more terrifying than any scream. Punishments, they say, were for the disobedient, but what if merely existing in the wrong place at the wrong time could cost you your life? Chains were not just metal, they were the language of fear, a constant reminder that even your heartbeat could betray you. No one wrote these stories, at least not in public. The scribes, the senators, the historians, they celebrated conquest, victories, and lavish spectacles, while the screams of the enslaved were drowned in the roar of the crowds. Gladiators fought for glory, but what of those who never even reached the arena? The women, the children, the men broken into silence, hidden in the shadows of Rome's grand theaters and villas? And yet, there were whispers, small fleeting glimpses of horror, a master's cruel eye, a sudden disappearance, the taste of blood from a wound that never healed. Each whisper was a warning: live cautiously, speak softly, breathe quietly. For in Rome, even a single wrong word could echo across your life and end it. But what if you were born into this world? What if your first memory was not of your mother's embrace, but of chains and cold stone walls? Could you survive the relentless torment? Could you keep your spirit when every day, every hour, every minute threatened to erase your very existence? This is not just a story of punishment. It is a story of survival, of courage, of the quiet defiance that hid in hearts that refused to break completely. Behind the glimmering Senate halls, the bustling marketplaces, the triumphs of emperors, there were lives fighting to exist in a world that denied them humanity. Tonight, you will witness the brutal reality Rome tried to hide. You will walk the halls where shadows whispered, where fear was more powerful than swords, and where the price of living could be more than one could ever imagine. And by the end, you will ask yourself, could you endure what these forgotten souls endured? Could you survive a life that was never yours to claim, in a city built on blood and silence? The story begins where history dares not look. The life of a Roman slave, the cruelty, the fear, and the hidden strength that refused to be extinguished. Step carefully. Some doors once opened can never be closed. The city of Rome gleamed in the sunlight, its marble pillars and crowded streets a testament to power and ambition. From the outside it appeared magnificent, untouchable, eternal. But beneath its grandeur, in the shadows of opulent villas and the bustling forums, a hidden world thrived. A world defined by fear, obedience, and the relentless chains of servitude. Here every footstep mattered. Every glance was measured, and every breath could carry a silent threat. Marcus, born into this shadowed world, had never known freedom. His earliest memories were of cold stone floors, and the smell of sweat and dust mingled with the iron scent of chains. The lullabies that most children knew, the warmth of a mother's embrace, the soft whisper of a father's voice, were replaced with commands barked, punishment delivered, and the ceaseless labor that demanded all of his strength and left none for his dreams. From sunrise to dusk, Marcus moved through the villa like a ghost, his presence both invisible and indispensable. He carried water from distant wells, polished the marble floors until they shone, and endured the sharp eyes of the overseer, whose gaze was capable of silencing even the boldest of souls. And yet amidst the suffering there was a spark, a quiet awareness that life, even under chains, had moments that could not be stolen. He had learned the subtle language of survival, a tilt of the head, the careful placement of a foot, the silent anticipation of his master's moods. These were not merely skills, they were shields against the cruelty that could erupt at any moment. Marcus understood that obedience alone was not enough. He had to anticipate danger, predict injustice, and guard his spirit against despair. The villa itself was a labyrinth of hidden corridors and secret corners, each space a microcosm of Roman society. In the kitchens, slaves labored endlessly, preparing feasts that would never feed them. In the gardens, they toiled under the hot sun, shaping the landscape into symbols of wealth they could never possess. And in the shadowed rooms above, those who dared resist quietly disappeared, leaving whispers that spread like fire among the enslaved. Marcus's companions were a mix of hardened survivors, and frightened youths, each shaped by circumstances too cruel for their age. There was Livia, whose nimble fingers could sew intricate garments in minutes, but whose eyes carried the weight of unspoken sorrow. There was Gaius, a man broken in body but unbroken in mind, who spoke rarely yet taught Marcus the lessons of patience, endurance, and subtle defiance. Together, they navigated the delicate balance of obedience and survival, each day a test of wits and will. Life in the villa was punctuated by moments of terror that seemed designed to strip away humanity. Punishments were brutal and arbitrary: a lash for a misplaced step, a night in the dark chamber for a glance deemed insolent. Slaves learned quickly that Rome demanded perfection, and yet perfection could never guarantee safety. Fear was a constant companion, lurking behind every door in every shadow, whispering that the next mistake could be your last. And yet Marcus held on to fragments of hope, tiny sparks that refused to be extinguished. In stolen moments he watched the city from hidden windows, imagining life beyond the walls. He wondered what it would be like to walk freely, to speak without fear, to feel the warmth of the sun on his face without the oppressive weight of chains. These dreams were dangerous. They could invite punishment, but they were also essential, a lifeline for a soul trapped in relentless darkness. The villa was not merely a home. It was a stage where the drama of power, cruelty, and endurance played out daily. Each day revealed new injustices, small triumphs, and fleeting connections that reminded Marcus of what it meant to be alive. And though he was bound by chains, his mind wandered beyond the walls, imagining the world as it could be, one where survival did not mean surrendering your very essence. It was in this delicate balance, between obedience and quiet defiance, fear and hope, life and suffering, that Marcus's story began. The days would grow darker, the trials more relentless, and the choices more harrowing. Yet in the hidden chambers of his heart, a resilience quietly took root, preparing him for the challenges that lay ahead. For every chain that bound him, there was a spark that could not be broken. And as the sun set over Rome, casting long shadows across the marble floors, Marcus braced himself for the trials to come, unaware that his courage would soon be tested in ways the history books would never record. The days in the villa grew heavier, each hour a tightening noose around Marcus's spirit. The overseer's eyes seemed to follow him everywhere, measuring, judging, waiting for a misstep. Punishments escalated, not always for mistakes, but sometimes for the mere perception of defiance. A fallen tray could mean lashes. A whispered complaint could vanish someone into the hidden chambers above. Marcus watched companions crumble under relentless cruelty. Livia's hands shook as she stitched garments with trembling precision, while Gaius, though unbroken in mind, bore scars that told silent stories of suffering. Every corner of the villa held a reminder. Life here was never safe, never fair, never humane. Yet amidst the fear, Marcus discovered tiny rebellions, small acts of courage that refused to be snuffed out. A stolen glance at the city beyond the walls, a whispered warning to a friend, a hidden scrap of bread shared in secret. These moments became his lifeline, tiny sparks in a world that sought to consume him. And as the shadows lengthened, the injustices grew bolder, preparing Marcus for the crucible ahead. Every heartbeat was a question. Could he endure? Could he survive? Could his spirit remain unbroken in a world designed to crush him? The answer would come soon, through fire, blood, and unrelenting trial. The villa was silent in the early hours, yet the tension was palpable, a quiet storm building before the inevitable eruption. Marcus could feel it in every muscle, every heartbeat. The overseer's shadow fell longer than usual, and the air smelled of sweat, dust, and something darker. Fear made flesh. Today there would be no small punishments, no whispered warnings. Today, the full weight of Roman cruelty would descend. It began with a slip. A tray dropped, a goblet shattered. The sound echoed like a gunshot, reverberating through the marble halls. Marcus froze, as if caught in a trap he could not escape. The overseer's eyes narrowed, scanning the room with a precision that made the air itself tremble. Slaves flinched, hearts hammering, knowing the storm had arrived. The punishment was swift and brutal. Marcus watched as one of his companions was dragged to the chambers above, disappearing behind the heavy doors, with screams that clawed at the walls and refused to leave the mind. Another fell under the lash, his body convulsing, the pain so sharp it seemed to rend the air itself. Fear was no longer an invisible companion. It had become flesh and bone, stalking each of them with relentless precision. Marcus's heart raced, yet a strange clarity settled over him. Survival was no longer a question of obedience. It was a test of spirit. Every instinct screamed to hide, to shrink into shadows, yet something within him, an ember long kept alive, refused to be extinguished. He moved with careful, deliberate steps, avoiding the gaze of those who would see weakness as an invitation. Then came the ultimate trial. The master entered, his presence like a living force, demanding perfection and obedience from every slave in the room. One wrong glance, one hesitant movement, and punishment would follow. Marcus felt the weight of generations of suffering pressing down, the invisible chains of fear and expectation tightening around him. Yet in that moment he understood. To survive was to endure, to observe, to act with both courage and cunning. He whispered nothing, spoke no word, but his body became a vessel of quiet defiance. Each movement, each step, each silent calculation was a refusal to be broken. The overseer's whip lashed close enough to taste, but Marcus remained upright, steady, his mind sharper than ever. In that crucible of terror, he found a hidden strength, something even Rome's cruelty could not erase. By the time the sun rose high and the shadows retreated, Marcus stood among the shattered and the fallen, unbowed, unbroken, carrying within him the raw, unyielding fire of survival. The villa had demanded everything, yet it had not claimed him entirely. In the silence that followed, the question lingered. In a world designed to crush the spirit, how far could a single ember of courage endure before it ignited into something unstoppable? Marcus had not yet answered, but he was ready to face the next chapter, whatever it might hold. The villa was quieter now, but the echoes of suffering lingered like a shadow that refused to fade. Marcus walked through the halls, his steps measured, each one a testament to endurance. The punishments, the fear, the relentless cruelty, they had tested him, stripped him, and scarred him. Yet somehow he remained, not unscarred, not unshaken, but alive. And in survival, he had found something the masters of Rome could never take. A sense of self, a spark of defiance that no whip or chain could fully extinguish. Outside, the city continued its ceaseless rhythm, markets bustling, senators debating, citizens oblivious to the lives hidden in the shadows. To them, Rome was eternal, magnificent, untouchable. But Marcus knew its truth. The grandeur was built on bones, on the silent suffering of those who had no voice. And while history would not record the names of slaves like him, their existence, their endurance, and their courage were real. He paused in a quiet corner, sunlight falling across his face. For the first time, Marcus allowed himself a moment of reflection. He understood that survival was not merely about living another day. It was about preserving the spirit, the small acts of defiance that made life meaningful even in the darkest circumstances. Each day endured, each whispered secret, each hidden act of compassion. These were victories the oppressors could never see, yet they mattered most. Marcus's journey did not erase the horrors he endured, nor did it promise freedom, but it revealed a truth far greater than fear. Even in a world designed to break you, the human spirit can endure, resist, and quietly assert its existence. One life, however hidden, could carry the weight of courage, becoming a silent witness to injustice and a spark for hope. And as the villa's shadows lengthened, Marcus raised his eyes to the horizon, a silent question lingering in the air. In a world built on cruelty and oppression, what does it take to truly survive? Not just the body, but the soul. Not just another day, but the defiance of a lifetime. Some doors remain closed, some histories remain unrecorded, yet the resilience of those who endured whispers through time. Marcus's story, though lost to most, serves as a testament. Even in the darkest chapters, courage endures, and survival is itself an act of rebellion.